The night was calm in James's small village. The stars above were clear and bright. He was sitting alone outside his little workshop, fixing an old motor. His hands were dirty with oil. He liked quiet nights like this. Suddenly the sky changed. A loud boom shook the ground. Dogs started barking. Lights flashed in the sky, red, orange, and green. It looked like fire was falling from space. People came out of their homes pointing and screaming. Some ran back inside, scared. Children cried. But James stood still, watching the strange object falling from the sky. It was not a plane. It was not a meteor. It was something else. The burning object crashed into the forest near the village. Trees shook. Birds flew away in fear. A deep echo rolled through the earth. James didn't wait. He jumped into his old pickup truck and drove fast toward the crash. His heart was beating hard. He didn't know why, but something inside told him, "Go now." As he reached the forest, smoke filled the air. The ground was hot. Fire danced on some bushes and the air smelled like burning metal. He followed the smoke and found something strange. A black pod, big, shiny, and broken, lay between the trees. It was still glowing. Sparks flew from its side. Strange marks and symbols covered the surface. James stepped closer. He heard a sound, a soft cough. He rushed to the broken side of the pod and looked inside. His eyes went wide. There was a girl inside, but she was not human. She had silver hair, glowing blue skin, and long eyelashes like feathers. Her face was bruised. Her clothes were torn. Some kind of thin armor covered her chest and arms. She looked up at James with scared eyes. Her lips moved weakly. "Please, don't let them take me back." James's heart froze. She was bleeding from her shoulder, shaking badly. He had no idea who she was, what she was, but he knew one thing. She needed help. He reached inside, trying to lift her gently. She winced in pain but didn't stop him. "You'll be okay," James whispered. "I've got you." She looked at him confused, like no one had ever spoken kindly to her before. Just then, he heard a crack behind him. James turned. In the shadows, 3 tall figures were watching him. They wore dark armor with helmets that glowed red. Their eyes shined like fire. One of them lifted a weapon, long and sharp like a spear made of light. James's body tensed. He grabbed a metal rod lying near the pod. It was the only thing he had. He stepped back, holding the alien girl close. The soldiers didn't speak. They started walking toward him slowly like hunters chasing prey. James shouted, "Stay back!" They didn't stop. The girl whispered something. Her voice was weak. "They're hunters. They will kill us both." James didn't think. He turned and ran. Branches hit his face. The ground was rough. But he kept going, carrying her in his arms. Behind him, he heard the strange scream of the hunters. A beam of red light flew past him and hit a tree. It exploded into ash. James ran faster. He reached his truck, threw open the door, and placed the girl on the seat. He jumped in and started the engine. The tires screamed as he drove away, dirt flying behind him. Back in the village, lights were still on. People were outside talking, but James didn't stop. He drove past them and headed straight for his workshop. He opened the back door and carried the girl inside. His hands were shaking. He placed her gently on the workbench, cleared tools away, and took a deep breath. Her eyes were closing. No, stay with me," James said. "What's your name?" She opened her mouth. "Lysera." Then she passed out. James looked at her and whispered, "Lysera, who are you? What have I just brought into my world?" Outside in the darkness, the hunters were not far behind. One of them placed his hand on the ground. A red glow lit up under his glove. He smiled. "She bleeds," he hissed to the others. "And the human. He carries her scent." They turned their heads toward the village. The hunt was on. James didn't sleep that night. Inside his workshop, the strange alien girl, Lysera, lay weak and quiet on the old bench. Her blue skin had lost some of its glow. James had cleaned her wounds the best he could, using his first aid kit and a wet cloth. Her body was cold and her breathing was slow. He sat next to her with a flashlight, watching her face. "Who are you?" he whispered. Suddenly her eyes opened, not fully, just enough to see him. You saved me," she said in a soft, broken voice. James nodded. "You crashed here. I couldn't leave you." Lysera tried to sit up, but pain hit her and she gasped. James quickly stopped her. Easy. You're hurt bad. She looked around. Where am I? My workshop. You're safe. For now. But deep down, James knew that was not true. He remembered the red-eyed soldiers in the forest. He remembered the sound of their weapons. Fire that could burn a tree in seconds. They were not from Earth. And they were hunting her. I need to leave. Lysera whispered. They'll find me. Who are they? James asked. She paused. Her lips trembled. They were my guards. Once now they serve my mother's enemy. They want to bring me back. To punish me for escaping. James stared at her. Are you a criminal? No, she said quickly. I'm a princess. James blinked. You're serious? Lysera nodded weakly.
Of the planet Zarentha.
I was supposed to be married to a general. I refused. I ran. Now they want me dead, or worse. James sat back in shock. An alien princess, hiding in his workshop. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a war he didn't understand. Outside, the night had turned quiet again, but not safe. In the distance, a sound like humming thunder grew louder. James stood up fast and walked to the window. There it was, a strange flying vehicle, black and smooth, hovering just above the treetops. Its light scanned the ground, one beam heading straight for the village. His heart dropped. They're looking for you. Lysera grabbed his hand, her voice full of fear. They can smell my blood. I need to get far, away from this place. James looked at her. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't rich or smart or strong. He was just a mechanic. But the look in her eyes, the fear, the pain, moved something in his heart. I'll take you, he said. We'll leave now. She stared at him. You'd do that for me? James grabbed his keys and said with a smile, Well, I already fixed your spaceship, remember? They moved fast. James wrapped Lysera in an old brown blanket and carried her to the truck. The streets were empty. Everyone had gone inside after the crash. The black alien vehicle was now moving toward the hills, but James knew it wouldn't be long before it circled back. He started the truck and drove into the dark road leading away from the village. Lysera leaned her head on the window, watching the trees pass by. You are different from the people of my world, she said softly. How so? James asked. You help without wanting reward. You risk everything for someone you don't know. James laughed quietly. Maybe I'm just dumb. She smiled for the first time. No, you're kind. Suddenly, boom. A red beam of light exploded just ahead, tearing a hole in the road. James hit the brakes. The truck spun, sliding into the grass. He looked up. 2 alien hunters were standing in the road, weapons raised. They found us, Lysera cried. One fired again. James ducked. The beam sliced off the side mirror. James turned the wheel hard, speeding through the trees, dodging branches. More blasts came. Trees burned. Dirt flew. Lysera held on tight, closing her eyes. Finally, James drove into a hidden path that led to an old mining tunnel abandoned for years. Stopped the truck inside the dark tunnel and turned off the engine. Silence only. The sound of both their heavy breathing. James looked at Lysera. Her face was pale again. She had lost more blood. She touched his hand. If they catch us, they will kill you. James said nothing. She looked at him with tears in her glowing eyes. You still have a chance. Leave me. Go back. I'll face them alone. He shook his head. I don't leave people behind. Not on my planet. Outside the tunnel, the hunters scanned the area. The leader hissed, She bleeds, and the human protects her. Such weakness. He raised his weapon, but something in the air had changed. The queen had just learned her daughter was still alive, and she was watching. The tunnel was cold and dark. James sat in the truck with his hand resting on the steering wheel. Beside him, Lysera was weak but still breathing. Her silver hair stuck to her face with sweat. Her wound had started bleeding again. He looked around the tunnel. Just rocks, dust, and silence. We'll rest here for a few hours, he whispered. But Lysera shook her head slowly. They'll come. They always come. James tightened his jaw. He reached behind the seat and pulled out an old toolbox. Inside was a hunting knife, a metal rod, a flare gun, and a broken taser. That was all he had. No armor. No laser, no backup, just courage and a reason to fight. Minutes later, a faint red light appeared near the tunnel entrance. Then came the sound of metal footsteps. 3 alien hunters stepped into the shadows of the cave. Their helmets glowed. Their eyes burned red. One of them licked his lips. He could taste the air. She is near, he growled. And the human is with her. They moved fast. James quickly pushed Lysera behind a pile of rocks and stood in front of the truck. Holding the metal rod like a sword, he was shaking, but he didn't run. He waited. The first hunter stepped forward. His armor was black and silver. His weapon looked like a long blade made of fire. He laughed. A human dares protect a royal traitor. James didn't answer. He just raised the rod. The hunter charged. James ducked the first strike. Sparks flew as the rod hit the alien's shoulder, but it did nothing. The hunter turned and punched James across the chest, sending him flying. James hit the tunnel wall hard. His back screamed with pain, but he got up. Blood dripped from his lip. He gripped the rod tighter. The second hunter walked toward Lysera's hiding place. No, James shouted, and he ran forward. He tackled the alien from behind, grabbing the blade with bare hands. It burned his skin, but he held on. Lysera pulled herself up and grabbed the flare gun from the truck. With shaking hands, she aimed at the alien's face. Boom. A burst of fire exploded. The alien screamed as flames covered his helmet. He ran, trying to put it out. James dropped to the ground, gasping for air. But the third hunter was already moving, his blade ready to strike. Lysera screamed, "Behind you!" James turned too late. The blade cut into his shoulder. He fell to his knees. The alien raised the weapon again, ready to finish him. Then, zap! A blast of blue light hit the hunter straight in the chest. He flew backward and crashed into the rocks. Lysera had pulled out a hidden energy crystal from her armor, small but powerful. The tunnel shook with the blast. Dust and rocks fell from the ceiling. James crawled to her. You saved me this time." Lysera smiled weakly. "We're even." But it wasn't over. The first hunter was still alive. He stood tall, helmet cracked, breathing heavy. He looked at Lysera and raised his weapon for the final strike. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the tunnel. "Enough." Everyone froze. A tall figure stepped into the light. She wore a long silver robe, her eyes glowing like the moon. Her hair floated like smoke. She didn't carry a weapon, but the air around her felt heavy, powerful. Lysera's eyes widened. "Mother?" The alien queen had arrived, Queen. Celeria looked at the hunter. "Lay your blade down now." The hunter hesitated, then he dropped his weapon and knelt. She turned to James. Her voice was calm but strong. "You are the one who saved my daughter." James nodded slowly. "Still in pain, I did. You fought my soldiers with bare hands. Why?" James looked at Lysera, then back at the queen. "Because she asked for help." Queen Celeria's eyes softened. For a moment, something unreadable passed over her face. Surprise, respect, maybe more. Then she spoke. "You will come with us. Both of you." James helped Lysera into the truck as the queen's guards surrounded them. Not as enemies, but protectors now. As they walked out of the tunnel, James looked back at the darkness and thought, "A few hours ago I was just a mechanic. Now I'm standing between two alien powers." But he said nothing. He only held Lysera's hand, and she didn't let go. Far above, in the sky, a new ship waited. Not a hunter's ship. This one was royal. And inside it, something bigger was waiting for James, something he didn't yet understand. James had never flown in a spaceship before. Now, he was flying in the royal ship of an alien empire. He sat quietly beside Lysera, who was still weak but awake. Her head leaned gently on his shoulder. Around them, alien guards stood tall and silent, watching everything without blinking. The ship moved through the stars like a shadow, smooth, quiet, powerful. It didn't make a sound, but James could feel its strength in the floor beneath his feet. He looked at the walls. They weren't made of metal. They glowed with soft blue light like living glass. Strange symbols moved across them, writing he couldn't read. Lysera saw his face and smiled. "You're not dreaming," she said softly. "This is real." James gave a nervous laugh. "It feels like a dream that could kill me." She reached for his hand. "You saved me. My mother will respect that," but James wasn't sure. He had seen how powerful Queen Celeria was. Her voice had stopped a warrior. Her eyes had frozen the room. That was not a mother. That was a ruler, and rulers don't always like outsiders. Soon the ship entered orbit above Zarentha. James gasped. The planet was beautiful. Golden oceans shimmered in the light of twin suns. Floating islands hovered over purple clouds. Giant towers rose from glowing forests. It looked like something from a storybook. But Lysera's grip on his hand tightened. "Don't be fooled," she whispered. "Beauty hides secrets here." When the ship landed, the Queen's guards led them into the palace. The hallway stretched far and wide. The walls sang softly, as if whispering secrets from 1,000 years ago. Alien nobles watched James with cold eyes as he walked past. Who is this human? Why is he beside the princess? Why is he still breathing? James felt their stares. He wasn't dressed like them. His jacket had bloodstains. His boots were dusty. But he kept walking. He wasn't here to impress them. He was here to protect Lysera. At the end of the hall stood Queen Zelaria. She wore a long, dark robe that moved like smoke. Her crown floated above her head, spinning gently. Her face was calm, but her eyes held storm. She spoke slowly. "Human. Step forward." James walked ahead. Lysera tried to follow, but a guard held her back. "You may not speak yet, daughter," the Queen said. James stood tall, though his legs were shaking. "You saved my child," she said. "You fought my hunters. You hid a royal fugitive. Do you know what that means?" James nodded. "I broke your laws." "Yes," the Queen replied. "But you followed your heart." There was silence, then she did something that surprised the whole room. She smiled. "You showed what many of my own people forgot," she said. "Kindness, courage, loyalty." She stood and walked toward him slowly, step by step. "You're not just a human. You are rare." James didn't know what to say. The Queen stopped inches from him. She raised her hand and touched his chest. "The people of Zarentha will fear you," she whispered. "The council will hate you. But I do not." She turned and spoke to the room. "This man is now under my protection. Any harm to him is harm to the throne." Everyone gasped. Lysera's eyes widened. Even the guards looked shocked. Later, in a private chamber, Lysera finally spoke to her mother. "You can't just claim him like that." Queen Zelaria sat by the window watching the stars. "I did not claim him," she said softly. "I invited him into our world." Lysera frowned. "You never invited anyone like this before." The Queen turned slowly. "I see strength in him. And something else." Lysera's voice dropped. "You like him?" The Queen said nothing, but her silence spoke louder than words. Meanwhile, James sat in his new room, a floating chamber filled with soft light, music from unseen instruments, and windows that showed the galaxy outside. He felt small, but he also felt something else. A pull, like he didn't belong here. And yet, he was meant to be here. Suddenly, his door opened. Lysera walked in, eyes full of warning. "You're in danger," she whispered. James stood up. "From who?" She answered with one word: "Everyone." James had always been a simple man. He fixed broken things. He lived alone. He never expected to become part of an alien world. Now, he was walking through the royal palace of Zarentha, with alien guards beside him, strange lights above his head, and nobles whispering behind golden walls. Everyone stared, not in kindness, not in welcome. They looked at him like he was a mistake, or worse, a threat. Lysera stayed close, acting like his guide. But James could feel her tension. Her shoulders were stiff, her eyes always moving. "Are they all angry that I'm here?" he whispered. She nodded. "They think you are weak, unclean, not one of us." "Nice," James muttered. "Makes me feel real special." Lysera smiled a little. "You are special. That's why they're scared." They walked into a giant chamber called the Hall of Echoes. The floor glowed beneath their feet. The walls were made of living stone that showed moving images, memories of the planet's history. James stopped at one image. It showed a human, kneeling before an alien queen, but then the picture changed. The human was being crushed under the weight of chains. James frowned. "Is that supposed to be a Earth?" Lysera didn't answer. Suddenly a voice rang out. "So this is the human toy the queen protects?" James turned. A tall man with silver armor and glowing eyes walked toward him. His steps echoed loudly. "This is Lord Vayrek," Lysera said softly, "commander of the Zarenthian army." Vayrek stopped in front of James, towering over him. "You think saving a weak princess makes you a hero?" He growled. James stayed calm. "I don't care what you think. I didn't do it to be a hero." Vayrek leaned close. Then why are you still here, Earthman? James looked him in the eye. Because your queen invited me. That made the noble pause for half a second, but only half. Then he smiled in a cold, dangerous way. Let's see how long you last. Later, in the royal gardens, James sat by a glowing tree that hummed quietly. Lysera joined him, carrying strange fruit. You did well, she said. I just talked, James replied. Talking is dangerous here. She offered him fruit. It looked like a red glass apple. He bit into it. It tasted like fire and honey. Lysera sat beside him. When I first saw you, she said, I thought you were weak. Thanks. But I was wrong, she said. You have no armor, no laser, no title. But you still protect. Still stand? James looked at her. You don't need to wear a crown to be royal, he said. She smiled. That's what scares my mother. As the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, a loud bell rang across the palace. Lysera's smile faded. That's the dinner bell. The queen wants you at the royal table. James stood up. Do I have to wear something fancy? You'll be the only one not wearing armor or silk. Perfect, James said. Let's make it awkward. The royal dinner table was huge. Dozens of alien nobles sat around it wearing capes, helmets, glowing jewelry. Dishes of floating food moved by themselves. At the center sat Queen Zelaria. She wore a dark red robe tonight. Her hair was tied high like a flame. Her eyes found James immediately. Welcome, my guest, she said. Join us, James walked forward. The room was silent. Every step echoed. He sat beside Lysera, directly across from Lord Varek. The queen raised a glass. To courage, and those who show it. Everyone drank except James. He sniffed his drink and looked at Lysera. She nodded, it was safe. But just as he lifted it to his lips, a servant behind him dropped a dish. Crash. Everyone jumped. The servant was shaking. He picked up the dish, apologizing in a strange tongue. But James noticed something. The servant's fingers had small red sparks on them. James's eyes widened. He remembered that same red spark from the hunter in the forest. Before he could react, his glass fell from his hand, his vision blurred, his heart raced. Lysera, he whispered, something's wrong. She turned and caught him as he fell forward. James? The room exploded into chaos. The queen stood up fast. Poison, call the healers. Lord Varek didn't move. He watched James fall with calm, cold eyes. The queen knelt beside James, touching his face. Stay with me, she said softly, her voice breaking. But James was already slipping into darkness. Somewhere in the shadows, a noble whispered, This is what happens when you let a human sit at the royal table. The room was silent. James lay on a golden bed inside the royal healing chamber. Strange lights floated above him, sending soft waves of energy into his body. His face was pale. His breathing was slow but steady. For 2 days, he had been unconscious. Lysera sat beside him, holding his hand. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were red from crying. Every few minutes, she looked toward the door, waiting for the queen. Finally, it opened. Queen Zelaria entered, wearing a long silver robe. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried storm clouds. Behind her walked a healer, bowing low. Leave us, the queen said. The healer bowed again and left quietly. Now, it was only the queen, her daughter, and the human who had risked his life for them. Lysera stood and faced her mother. He was poisoned at your table. Your court tried to kill him. The queen's voice was sharp. Do you think I don't know? I've already dealt with the one responsible. Lysera frowned. You mean you executed him? The queen looked away. He paid the price. Lysera stepped closer. Why do you care so much, mother? He's just a human. You never cared for anyone else before. Queen Zelaria's lips trembled slightly, though she hid it well. Because he did what even my generals wouldn't do, she said softly. He protected you. He faced death for you. And for that, I owe him. James moved weakly. His eyes opened halfway. His vision was blurry, but he saw the queen's tall figure near him. Where am I? He whispered. You are safe, the queen said, her tone gentle. In my palace, James blinked. How long was I out? 2 days, Lysera said, holding his hand tighter. James tried to sit up, but pain hit his chest. The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. Rest, the poison nearly reached your heart. My blood saved you. He looked at her, confused. Your blood? The queen nodded. Our healers couldn't save you, so I did. Lysera stared at her mother. You gave him your royal blood? The queen turned to her. It was the only way. The room fell silent again. James could feel something strange inside him, like a fire that wasn't burning, but glowing. His heartbeat felt stronger, faster, not fully human. He looked at his hands. For a second, they shimmered faintly with silver light. What's happening to me? He asked. The queen's eyes softened. My blood carries power. It has bonded with you. You are not fully human anymore. Lysera gasped. You turned him into one of us? No, said the queen. Something between both worlds. Later that evening, word spread across the palace. The queen had shared her royal blood with a human. The nobles were furious. This is forbidden, Lord Varek growled in the council. A human cannot carry royal essence. The queen stood calmly before them. He already does. He lives because of me. He belongs under my protection now. Then say it clearly, said one noble. Do you claim him? The queen's voice echoed across the hall. Yes. The council gasped. Lysera stormed into her mother's chamber later that night, her eyes full of anger and pain. You claimed him as your own? She shouted. Queen Zelaria turned from the window. The twin moons of Zarentha shone behind her. I had to protect him, she said softly. Lysera's voice broke. No, you didn't have to make him yours. The queen stepped forward. You're too young to understand. Lysera shook her head. I understand perfectly. You're falling for him. The queen's hand froze midair. For a moment she said nothing. Then quietly she admitted, Perhaps I am. In another part of the palace, James walked through the quiet halls, now stronger but lost in thought. Guards bowed as he passed. Servants looked away. Everyone knew who he was now, the human claimed by the queen. He stopped by a mirror. His reflection looked back, half human, half something else. His eyes had a faint glow. He whispered to himself, What am I becoming? Behind him, Lysera appeared. Her eyes were wet, her face full of mixed emotions. James, we need to leave, she said. What? My mother isn't saving you anymore. She's claiming you. Once the council fears her power, they'll come after both of you. And you'll die because of me. James looked at her silently. I can't let that happen again, she whispered. He took her hand gently. Then what do we do? She looked up at him with trembling lips. We run, James hesitated. And the queen? Lysera looked down. She won't chase us. Not as a ruler. But as a woman, she might. In the royal tower, Queen Zelaria stood alone, watching the stars. A soft smile touched her lips. He has my blood now, she whispered. Wherever he goes, he will never escape me. Her reflection in the glass shimmered, half queen, half shadow. The night on Zarentha was darker than usual. The sky, usually glowing with 2 moons, now held thick purple clouds. Lightning flickered in silence across the alien skies. Inside the palace, everything looked calm, but storm was coming. James and Lysera moved through the palace halls, dressed in dark cloaks. They walked fast but carefully. Every step was a risk, James whispered. Are you sure about this? Lysera nodded. There's an old escape path. My father once used it long ago. No one guards it now. James looked at her. If we're caught. We won't be, she said. But her voice trembled. Behind them, in the high tower, Queen Zelaria stood alone. She already knew. She had known the moment Lysera opened the old panel behind the garden statue. She had seen it in her mind. The bond of blood was strong now. Still, she made no command. She gave no order to stop them. Instead, she stood before the stars, letting the weight of her choice rest on her heart. I gave you life, she whispered, and now, I let you go. Down below, James and Lysera reached the ancient tunnel. It was hidden behind thick roots, glowing with strange alien light. The door opened when Lysera pressed her hand against a stone with her family's symbol. They stepped inside. The tunnel was cold. It felt like a tomb. But they walked together, hands locked, hearts beating fast. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed behind them. Going somewhere? They turned. Lord Varek stood at the tunnel's mouth, his armor shining, his sword glowing with red fire. Lysera stepped in front of James. You won't touch him, she said. Varek laughed. I don't need to. The Queen gave him her blood. He belongs to this world now, and he can never leave it. James stepped forward. I don't belong to anyone. Varek raised his sword. Then prove it. The fight was fast. James had no blade, only a broken metal pipe he found in the tunnel. But his body was different now, stronger, faster than before. His movements had power, his senses were sharper. Lysera watched with wide eyes. This wasn't the same human who fixed engines. This was someone who had changed. Someone becoming legend. James dodged Varek's blade, slammed the pipe against the side of his armor, and sent the commander crashing into the wall. Sparks flew. Stones cracked. Breathing hard, James dropped the pipe. No more. Varek lay still, unconscious. Lysera touched James's arm. Are you okay? I don't know what I am anymore, he said. They continued through the tunnel and reached a chamber with an ancient teleport ring, a glowing circle of symbols that could send them far from the capital. James stepped inside with her, but suddenly he stopped. Lysera looked at him. What is it? He stared into her eyes. What if I lose you in that light? She took his face in her hands. You found me in fire. If you ever lose me, find me again. He smiled. Deal. She activated the ring. Light exploded around them. Back in the palace, Queen Zelaria sat on her throne. An advisor ran in. My queen, they escaped. She closed her eyes. I know. Shall we chase them? She opened her glowing eyes. No. Let them run. The human carries my blood. Wherever he goes, part of me remains. She stood tall and proud. But tell the stars this. If he calls for me, I will come. Months later, on a quiet planet near a yellow sun, James worked in a small workshop fixing a satellite dish. Lysera laughed nearby, trying to teach Earth chickens how to fly. They failed, but she loved them anyway. James looked at her from a distance. He still remembered the palace, the poison, the queen, the fire in the sky. He remembered who he used to be and who he had become. One evening, as stars filled the sky, Lysera joined him outside. Do you miss her? She asked softly. He paused. Yes, he said, but not like before. Lysera took his hand. She let you go. James nodded. I think she loved me in her own way. And you? He looked up at the stars. I loved her too, but I chose you. They sat together in the quiet, listening to the wind and far, far away. On a royal throne of stars. Queen Zelaria closed her eyes and smiled.